Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming Lost Chapter event for Llyud from Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings Graven with Emotions. The synergy units for the event are the returning Llyud, Amidatelion, Zell, and Tifa. The featured units will be getting their force enhancement boards unlocked. Llyud FR will be making its debut. Both Llyud and Amidatelion will be getting their C90 awakening and reworks. We will be fighting 2 terror armor. Both bosses have 85 million HP each. They are weak against water. The turn requirement is 60. The HP requirements is 15,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. As we are no longer have Llyud plus fights, the boss guide will be focused primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. As your party has low force levels at the start of the era, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. For this fight, the boss force gauge is broken into 3 thresholds. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 20%, a prompt will be activated, magic concentrated in the eye. The boss will start using Felfey Eye Plus instead of Felfey Eye. I will cover more on the boss moveset in the later slides. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 40%, your party turn rate will get reduced by 30%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 80%, your party turn rate will get reduced by 50%. The boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. Overall, this fight isn't really a dangerous one as long as you have means to handle the Cursed Eye debuffs. The higher the stacks, the stronger the Cursed Eye debuffs will be. At the 100% threshold, Terror Armor will use its force ability, Felfey Eye plus and activates its force time for 3 turns. The boss force ability, Felfey Eye plus, will result the boss uses an AoE Brave plus HP attack that inflicts 5 stacks of Cursed Eye debuffs. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with a counter of 3 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, the bosses will gain an enhancement that reduces HP damage from non-force time attacks by 300%. You can just use your own force time to cancel its effect. To freeze the enemy's force time, you need to use a ranged force ability that heals the party, not including passives, buffs, or bonus sphere healing. Only Llyud FR meets the condition. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Seymour, Fran, Ignis, Lily-Set, Maria, and Dark Knight Cecil are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, Aura-type HP damage up calls like Kumari, Alisai, Priyash, Leo and Locke are also viable. Most recently C90 units have Aura-type HP damage up bonuses. You can use Dissidia DB Call Finder to find out more. You can easily do boss no turns once you set up your debuffs negation on the boss. Reno and Ragin LDCA are the debuff negation call that shut down the bosses. Redia LDCA also works well for the fight. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. For any endgame fights like Llyud and Shinryu, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. You can consider bringing Felfey, Lena, Yuri, Yuna, Garnet, Lunafreya, Charlotta, and Ramza. Felfey can make your party hit hard with her guaranteed launch debuff, while Lena can ensure your party is always safe with her powerful HP regen buffs. Both Lena and Felfey are top-notch budget supports. Burst healing is useful here as the fight feature a lot of AoE HP attacks. Felfey and Lena offer debuff evasion protection, while Yuna can cleanse debuffs with her Yuna, which will work well against the boss's Felfey Eye triggers at the key HP thresholds. It is advisable to bring a damage mitigator if you doing a hit and counter run. You can consider Beatrix, Snow, Warrior of Light, Zac, Core, Leela, Edge, Orin, Glove, and Gladiolus. Counter tanks like Orin, Glove and Gladiolus works perfectly for this fight, and they will shine even better as the boss turn rate down auras kicks in. Evasion tanks like Leela, Glove, or Edge also works wonders here as the fight doesn't feature any guaranteed hit attacks. In addition to the support and tanks, you can bring the following units if you have them. To make the fight easier, you can bring follow-up attacks to abuse your FR abilities. Sisnei, Freya, Kain, Cloud of Darkness and Vayne offer great support damage with their follow-up. Lyokan allows you to do more HP damage with his true HP damage mechanic. The fight features debuff triggers from the boss Felfey Eye+++. To avoid debuffs landing on your party, you can evade them or prevent them with debuff evasion. Other assisting your party to dodge those debuff trigger attacks, Rydia is great here for her party water enchant and boost your party damage by dealing weakness damage. Other than Felfey and Lena, debuff evasion units like Aphma and Aerith will be great here as well. Aerith will be getting her FR later this month. You can also cleanse debuffs with debuff cleansers like Yuna, Pain, Pernello, or Sidor. Yuffie can cleanse and at the same time, throwing back the debuffs back at the bosses as they aren't immune to their own debuffs. The only FR that halts the boss force time to use for this fight is Llyud. Other recommended FR for this fight is Tifa, Lunafreya, Camlanot, or a counter-oriented FR like Reno or Core. Llyud FR is one of the best auxiliary FR. Lots of JP players didn't feature him, maybe they are probably saving the resources for other popular units in the cycle, or his banner mates are pretty underwhelming. It could also be due to Tifa have drained all their resources and they have nothing left for Llyud. To abuse his FR, you just bring a unit with a stacking buff or overhead buff with HP regen. Meeting those conditions will give you 60% HP damage bonus per turn. You can easily abuse his FR conditions with the supercharging strategy that gives 110% when you use a supercharge instant turn non-attacking ability like Lunafreya's energy heal. If you have missed out Ursula or Iroha, Llyud is a nice addition to your roster. If you fulfill the 3 conditions of Ice, Disable and Launch, you can nuke the boss down fast before it could pose any threat with Camlanot FR. Tifa can finish up the fight with her smashing the bosses into pieces. Have a party setup call like Lunafreya LDCA will make your job easier. Lunafreya FR will give your party true water enchant, will help to boost your party damage by abusing elemental weakness damage. Her turn manipulation utility will also enable you to optimize your FR damage phase. As Shinryu is about building up your force gauge chargers are great to be deployed here. Characteristics of Force Charger are the unit have substantial amount of instant turn non-attacking abilities. At max force enhancement level 30, one such instant turn ability can supercharge the force gauge by a whopping 50%. You can easily amplify your force time damage by abusing the supercharging mechanics. Examples of such force gauge chargers units are Pernello, Kryl, Charlotta, Braska, Ignis, Felfey and Lunafreya. For other recommendations, you can consider the following. For tanks, you can bring Orin and Gladiolus. As the boss force time conditions offers turn rate down effect, you can abuse their counters with a counter-oriented FR like Reno or Core. Reno's Pyramid can help to prevent the debuffs. Core FR can help to negate their brave gains and protect your party from breaks. Gladiolus will be immune to the debuffs thanks to his powerful Blink LD buff. You can bring the standard damage nuker units like Tifa, Machina, Titus, Terra, Cloud of Darkness, Vayne, and nuke the boss with a FR-powered burst phase before they could activate their force time. As the boss don't have thresholds attack, Iroha and Ursula FR is another great alternative if you intend to abuse the supercharging strategy. Bring a Selfie friend and have her supercharge and use her Rapture debuff will allow you launch the boss all day. Her wall debuff also helps to give you a 70% chance of evading the Cursed Eye debuff. Yuri is great FR alternative with his traps and burst healing. His BT aura gives a 100% hit rate reduction and that will allow you to dodge the debuff counters safely. Yuffie can steal the boss attack buffs and throw back their debuffs. Her EX can prevent them from gaining a buff as well. Amidatelion, the other C90 unit, has turn deletions which allows you deny boss turns and allows your debuff negation calls staying longer. Turn deletion, delays, launches and follow-up are the common bread and butter utility for boss no-turn strategies. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. Like Lufania, Shinryu fights also features aura boosts for the boss when their HP are depleted to a certain threshold. The stats boosts are triggered at the start of the fight and 79%. Like other Shinryu fights, the enemy's force gauge will charge faster as their HP depletes. As the enemy's force gauge reaches 20% and above, the boss will upgrade its Felfey Eye to Felfey Eye Plus. The difference between the two skills is that Felfey Eye has AoE delay. When the gauge reaches to 40% and above, the boss party lower your party turn rate. Lower party turn rate can actually be a blessing in disguise if you are opting for a hit and counter strategy. When the force gauge reaches 100%, the boss will use its force ability, Felfey Eye ++++ will result the boss uses an AoE Brave plus HP attack, inflicts 5 stacks of Cursed Eye debuffs and activate the force time for 3 turns. The boss will use Felfey Eye +++ a debuff counter that inflicts 5 stacks of Cursed Eye debuffs at the 89%, 49%, and 19% HP thresholds. The key danger for this Cursed Eye debuff triggers from the boss attacks. The boss can build up the stacks by reapplying them. The Cursed Eye debuff can annoying and has HP poison that scales off the boss attack stats when the debuff reaches 5 stacks. You can either prevent the debuff negation call by using Ragen LDCA or Reno LDCA. As the triggers are non-guaranteed hit, Redia LDCA also works. Alternatively, you can prevent the debuffs with a debuff evasion support like Lena or Selfie or cleanse the debuffs with debuff cleansers like Yuna or Pernello. Overall, this isn't a tough fight as long as you have means to handle the debuffs. This won't be a tough battle to handle. Damage nukers like Tifa will probably smashes the bosses if you have her fully built. You can also duo the fight with core and a counter tank like Orin or Golov. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Similar to any Lufania fights, for Shinryu fights, the boss will also gain stats boosts and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete the boss's HP to a certain threshold. However, Shinryu bosses will also gain HP damage reduction auras as well. The thresholds trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight and 79% HP threshold. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 200%. It will raise its brave damage and brave gain reduction auras to 80%. It will also reduce your HP damage dealt by 50%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense stats to 300% and the HP damage dealt reduction auras to 80%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the brave gain reductions, you can bring a brave gain up support like Agrias, Ram, or Quistis. With the recent units released, you shouldn't have any problem in handling the brave gain or damage reduction auras. For HP damage reduction auras, HP damage up calls will only partly offset against the reductions. However, you can easily overwrite them with your party force time. As we progress through the era, we will gain access to units with FR that allows you to build up your force time HP damage bonuses up to 999%. Learning on how to take full advantage of the damage window in Shinryu fight holds the key on how to make Shinryu fights easier. Now, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. Let's recap on the threshold triggers. The boss will use Felfey Eye+++, an ability that inflict 5 stacks of Cursed Eye debuff on your party for 5 turns. The trigger will occur even while in summon or burst phase. You can negate it with debuff evasion, evade the attack, or use debuff negation call like Reno or Ragin to prevent the debuffs. Excluding the HP attack, the boss has 2 basic moves. The Helm Splitter is its basic brave attack that will buff the boss with 50% attack up along with 1 stack of Cursed Eye debuff on the target. The Felfey Eye is an AoE brave plus HP attack that inflicts 1 stack of Cursed Eye debuff. The ability will be upgraded to Felfey Eye Plus when the boss force gauge reaches 20% and above. The difference between the upgraded and the normal variant is the upgraded variant will delay all its targets. The boss will usually do 2 Helm Splitters before it uses the Felfey Eye attack. Let's talk about the Cursed Eye debuff. As you can see, all the boss abilities can inflict the Cursed Eye debuff. The debuff will gain stacks as the boss reapply the debuffs. The highest stack is at level 5. As the stack gains, the effects will add up as well. At stack 1, it will initiate a brave poison that is 100% of the target's initial brave. At stack 2, it will add an effect where it will increase brave damage of the boss by 10%. At stack 3, it will add an effect where the inflicted target will deal less 10% brave damage. At stack 4, it will add a speed down -40% on the inflicted target. At stack 5, it will add a HP poison effect that scales off the 30% of the boss attack stats. Lowering the boss attack stats or dispelling the attack buff will help to reduce the HP poison significantly. Generally, this fight will be significantly easier if you have the means to handle the debuffs. I have listed down on the options that you can use to handle the debuffs. With the debuffs out of the way, you can make use of turn deletions, delays, rebreaks and launches to kill off the boss before they pose any threat. If you are doing a hit and counter run, you can activate your force time when the boss force gauge is at 80% to take advantage of the turn rate down auras. The more turns that boss has, the more counters and off-turn attacks you can abuse within the 10 turns of force time. I have come to the last slide of the guide. By now, you should have a FR. Generally, you just charge up your force gauge. Have the FR unit activate their force time with their force ability. Prepare for a big damage phase either through a unit burst phase or supercharge the gauge with Kane's follow-up. To build up the bonuses efficiently, you need bring a force gauge charger. Examples are Pernello, Kryle, Ignis, Charlotta, Braska, Selfie and Lunafreya. At force level 30, this units can boost the force charge with 50% with their instant turn, non-attacking ability on top of the force time conditions. If you bring Kane or using Kane BT friend as support, have him activate his BT aura and let him stay in the air firing the lancets while your force gauge charger is spamming his or her instant turns. If you have Camlanot fully built with FR and BT, you can abuse his powerful FR mechanics by fulfilling 3 of the following conditions. 1. Constant launches. Selfie LD debuff, Kai's hero support or Sid Rain's LDCA on your burst unit. 2. Ice enchant. You can use Karasame LDCA for party ice enchant or bring an ice enchanter like Celis, Onion Knight, or Karasame himself. Snow also offers party-wide ice enchant with his BT aura. 3. Make sure you inflict a turn disable debuff on the boss. Camlanot BT is the easiest to set up. You can go through a setup process for this as well. When all conditions are met, the party can meet 80% HP damage bonus with a full party launch. We also have Lunafreya available where she will make setting up the FR phase easier. She works wonderfully well even you just use her as a LDCA. If you have Tifa fully built, she can blitzkrieg the boss with relative ease as long as you have means to handle the debuffs. Now let's recap on the boss key mechanics. The boss can build up stacks of Cursed Eye debuffs with its attacks. All its basic skills inflict one stack of the debuff. When the force gauge is up at 20%, it will start using Felfey Eye Plus instead of the generic one. It will incorporate an AoE delay. It will use Felfey Eye Plus at the 89%, 49%, and 19% HP thresholds. It will inflict 5 stacks of Cursed Eye debuff. The Felfey Eye Plus will also trigger while in the summon or burst phase. As long as you have means to handle the debuff trigger and deny their turns with delay, launch and turn deletion, the bosses will become punching bags for your party. To handle the debuff's trigger, you can either use one of the following methods. 1. Use a debuff negation ability, Reno's Pyramid or Ragen's Thunder Prod. 2. As the attacks are non-guaranteed hit, you can dodge the attacks with party evasion like Rydia, Edge, or Leela. 3. If you don't have the two options, you can bring a debuff evasion support like Lena, Aphma, Aerith, Selpha, or Ignis. Selpha can prevent the debuffs totally with self-summon. But I would suggest you to stick with the Spiritus Brothers summon since it provides more offensive damage. 4. You can also cleanse the debuffs or throw back the debuffs at the boss with Yuffie. Now I will make a quick overview on the FR of the featured unit, Llyud. Overall, Llyud is a very powerful non-BT unit that offers BT level auras. He can instantly fill your party EX with his own EX. He offers nice burst healing. Unfortunately, it is very rare to find Llyud showcase in JP because his banner is surrounded by the fan favorites and his banner mates has low investment value at the moment. Being from a relatively unknown sub-game also doesn't give people a lot of reasons to pull for his gear. In my opinion, he is a hidden gem that is waited to be uncovered. He has one of easiest fulfill auxiliary type FR. To fulfill his condition, you just need to take a turn with the following two conditions. 1. The active member has a stacking buff or effect. Field buffs or buff will stack are good partners with Llyud. Fulfilling this condition will gain you 40% HP damage bonus during his force time. 2. The second condition is that the units need to recover HP. You can use burst healing skills or even basic HP regen ability will uptick another 20% HP damage bonus during his force time. If you fulfill the two conditions and bring a supercharger with stacking or overhead buff like Lunafreya or Charlotta, you can supercharge your force time by 110% per turn if they are at max force enhancement levels. With this, I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight tomorrow. Bye.